sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shout it loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
There's only one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine.
Good morning, Diane.
Good morning. How are you? And welcome from Madrid.
Diane is in Spain, y'all. Listen, this is the technology of the show. We're hitting you all the way from Spain. So listen, no matter where you are in the world, as long as it's a free place, right? And they let you broadcast, because some places, like in China, you probably couldn't do this.
I think because they control the internet.
Yeah. But wherever it's free, we would be able to Skype and bring people in. So, welcome from Madrid. How was your flight?
My flight was good. We had two flights. We had a flight our first flight was into Miami, and then we had a over. We ate there, and then we had a longer flight into Madrid. And I realized that on smaller planes, you have more turbulence, so you could feel it more. On these wide-body planes where you have like 2, 5, 7 rows, it's like a smooth sailing flight to the fact that you don't even know that you're moving. And I think I clocked it. We were doing like 650 miles per hour.
So
it's exciting.
Diane, let me ask you a question. There's a huge article now that's out, and this woman is actually talking about suing the airline. I'm sure you read about it. Well, she was sitting in her seat. She leaned her seat back. I think she was in the row just before the last row. And the last row, you can't recline your seat because you have the wall behind you. So the gentleman who was in that seat was annoyed because she was essentially in his lap, and he couldn't find any relief by reclining. So you know what he decided to do? He started punching her chair, the back of her seat. Like, I mean, Diane, I don't mean like nudging it, asking her, the amount. I mean, he was hitting it like a heavyweight bag. He was punching it. So her whole body was doing like this. And she's now saying that she suffered concussion, or some back injury, neck injury, all those things, which is reasonable to think. If somebody kept doing that, I mean, think about how your body is being jarred. And I guess the airline didn't intervene during this entire episode, and so now she's going to sue. So, did you have any? You have any occurrence like that?
Well, no. Well, on the first flight, there was a young lady that got on at the last minute, and in our row was just myself and my daughter, so we would have had an empty seat, so we could have spread out a little bit more roomy. But her seat was across from us, and she would have had a middle seat. So she chose not to take the middle seat and sit on an end seat with us. That kind of annoyed me because I wanted to spread out. But other than that, no, I'm pretty good on the flight. For me, I just think I never have enough leg room, even though I'm short. And my daughter is taller than me. She always says her leg room is good. And I always complain about I need to stretch out. So I always want to have an end seat where I can stretch out, stick your foot out in the aisle. But you got to be careful because when they come with that cart, they don't say, excuse me, just come plowing through.
And you don't want to have a corn on your foot ready when they come. They roll over a corn or a bunion. It's a wrap.
Yeah. Well, I don't have corns or bunions, so I'm good.
Well, there you go. So, did they have food on the flight?
Yes. On the first flight to Miami, they give you like light stuff. But on an international flight, we had baked chicken.
Ooh.
Was it baked chicken? Yeah, baked chicken, mashed potatoes, and string beans.
Oh, so she's going to weigh in, but she's not going to get on camera.
No, she's not even paying attention to me. And then we had cheesecake, but we had already eaten before that. So I had steak and mashed potatoes before. So I was already kind of stuffed because she likes to eat before the flight because she doesn't really like the airplane food. But me, greedy as I am, I need to taste it anyway, even if I'm not full. So I did taste it. The food was good. So it was good.
Okay, and the cheesecake?
Cheesecake was good. There was like cheesecake. You know how they do the crumb bottom?
Oh.
It was different. It was different. It was good.
Okay. The graham cracker crust bottom.
Yes, the graham cracker bottom.
You gotta have that.
But it wasn't a full. It wasn't a full graham cracker. It was like specks of graham crackers. And you know, international flights you get free wine, so it was good.
Red or white?
What do we have? Pooh? White wine.
Now,
yeah,
do you go for the sweeter wines like the Moscatos, or do you go for the Sauvignon Blanc? What do you do?
No, I like sweet wine. I like sweet wine.
Okay.
But even before that, before I get on my initial flight, I always have a shot of tequila. Then I had another vodka and.
Oh, you gotta get flight ready. That's your your pre-flight plan.
Yeah, I gotta get my mind right and get calm, because otherwise my hands are shaking. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, I have an aunt.
It was a good smooth flight.
I have an aunt who lives in California, and she hates to fly. Like, she suffers major anxiety when she flies. And I guess they have, what is it, Xanax or whatever they have to give you or whatever. But before that, you know, she used to just drink. So, you know, she'd open up a bottle of Jack Daniels and get some Pepsi and, you know, and she, like you said, she'd get her mind right. So by the time she got to the airport, we were wheeling her in. And she woke up and she was back in California.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's me. I need to drink. It makes me feel better.
Good. Well, I'm glad you got there safely. I hope you guys have a great time, and certainly travel mercies on the way back. So,
Thank you.
Look, given what's going on here in the States, you may want to stay in Madrid. Like, you may not want to come back. Well, hey, you know what? So here's what I want to ask you. If you decided to stay and didn't go through the proper protocol, what would they do to you?
I'm not quite sure, but I'm not really trying to find out that.
Do you think you could find a sanctuary town?
No, for one, because I don't speak Spanish fluently enough to be able to stay and maneuver my way around. We just came from a restaurant earlier today because it's what time is it here? It's 4:14 here in the afternoon.
Okay.
So we just came from a restaurant, and the lady was like, "Please stop speaking Spanish. Just say it in English."
Wow. But I thought you were gonna get. I asked you. I said, "Are you gonna have one of those translators?"
We do. We have the it's a language reader. So basically you could take your phone and put it over menus and stuff, and it literally translates the words right there in front of you into English.
No, Diane.
It's good.
They have an app that if you speak into it and then you hit translate, it will spit out whatever the language is you want them to translate what you just said. And then the person who's talking to you, you'd hold it up, they would speak, say in Spanish, and then you'd hit translate, and then it would translate it in English for you. So your phone would be going back and forth, translating from English from you to Spanish for them, and then from Spanish from them to English to you. There's an app for that.
Yeah, well,
You said,
I don't know.
Yeah. You don't know about that?
No, I do know, but we haven't tried that. We're more trying to just speak the language ourselves instead of using the app.
Well, she told you don't do it.
Look up words
that lady told you don't try it.
Yeah, she was like, "Nah, well, I'm good."
Well, listen, there are a lot of things going on here, and as you see, I am in full armor now. I took off my tie, I took off my jacket, I got my ADOS hat on, I got my ADOS sweatshirt on. I am in full armor right now. And I'm going to be in full armor from now until the primary. Because it's necessary. It's necessary, Diane, because I want people, when I speak, to understand my frame of mind. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when they see me and they see my armor on, I want them to know Eric is ADOS, Eric is on code, and Eric is going to be holding you accountable. So this weekend, I put together, because we talked about this. We talked about beginning to identify slave catchers and Negro whisperers, right? We talked about coming out and, they were waiting with their brown paper bags to be filled, by various campaigns, and they were gonna, go around and do what they always do, herd black folks like cattle to the polls. And we see it happening. And so on the Democratic side, we have Mike Bloomberg, who literally is buying the Democratic Party. We already purchased it. We just see the transaction taking place now. Stacey Abrams, who I had such high hopes for. Is now, and an article came out saying that Mike Bloomberg was going to be at an event that she had. This was last week, and I posted that, and one of our listeners and viewers said, Eric, well, how do you know Stacey Abrams? Because I said you can't trust her, and they said, how do you know she invited him? It seems he invited himself, and my response to her was this: when you don't want to be around somebody, you're not around that person, right? If that person is not somebody you want to be associated with, you make it very, very clear, I don't care what they put out, that you don't want to be around that person or you're not aligned with that person. And so when that headline came out and she was in the photo and he was in the photo and you didn't hear any blowback from her campaign about it, I said you can't trust her. Then a few days, go ahead.
Why do you think you can't trust her? Why is she not just taking advantage of taking his money to move her movement?
It doesn't
further?
work like that, Diane.
That doesn't mean that she's going to vote for him or she's going to encourage her people to vote for him.
Diane, but it doesn't. Historically, it never works like that, right? So she has whatever program she has. He has now contributed or bought. It's not even a contribution. It was a purchase. He purchased her for $5 million. And for $5 million now, he's going to put a ring through her nose and attach a rope to it and drag her all over the country as the black woman who supports Mike Bloomberg, the guy who for 12 years threw black people up against the wall in New York. So he's now got this Negro woman who is going to blackwash him all across the country. That's what he got for $5 million.
So how do you know that with her movement of getting more people registered to vote, that she hasn't had a conversation with him to do something publicly to redeem himself and to do better for black people?
So the first thing that we know is this, and let's have the honest conversation, Diane. The guy for 12 years was headstrong about, and he didn't just implement the policy. He was flagrant about talking about marginalizing and criminalizing, demonizing black people, right? I mean, he did the media circuit talking about it for 12 years. And then after that, when, and he loved it so much that after his 8 years, after 2 terms, he ran a 3rd term just so that he can abuse black people some more, right? And then after his 3rd term was over and de Blasio won, Mike Bloomberg, as de Blasio was looking to eradicate stop and frisk, Mike Bloomberg came out defending it. So it went beyond his 12 years. It was 13, 14, 15 years that Mike Bloomberg was on the front page and on the stage talking about stop and frisk. It was only after he had determined that he wanted to run for president of the United States that he sat in a think tank with a host of professional marketeers and brand managers who said to him, "Hey, Mike, listen, you got this thing that you did, you know." And Mike, I'm sure, said, "Well, I don't care. You know, those black folks needed to be thrown up against the wall." He said, "But Mike, you can't go out there and say that." Mike said, "But I'm worth $58 billion. Mike, it doesn't matter. You still can't say that because you're going to need those Negroes to vote for you, Mike. So here's what you have to suck it up, Mike. You have to suck it up. I know how you really feel, but you're going to have to suck it up and you're going to have to apologize. Even if you don't mean it, you just have to go out there and say it. Because once you say it, then what's going to happen is all the Negro whisperers and slave catchers that are part of the Democratic Party that cape for the corporation white supremacy, they'll come running because they're going to want some of your money. That was the conversation, Diane, was taking place in these think tanks. And so Mike came out and he did it. And nobody, I want you to understand this. So here's the thing. Because we're reasonably bright people. You, me, and everybody who's listening to the show. If Donald Trump, for 12 years, ran a program to throw black people up against the wall, if Donald Trump said that all you need to do is give this profile of a black person, Xerox it, and hand it out to all the cops because they all are like this. If Donald Trump had done that, is there any apology? If he had done it for 12 years, if he had done it for 12 days, if he had done it for 12 minutes, Diane, is there any amount of apologizing that anybody within the Democratic Party would have accepted? No.
No, but then what do you say about a person does not have an opportunity to change? Is that what you're saying?
No. So what I'm asking you is this. I'm saying, would they have accepted the apology from Donald Trump? Would they have felt that Donald Trump was contrite? Would they have felt if Donald Trump had come out and talked about how redlining, which we understand, right, was detrimental to the black community in terms of our ability to acquire and transfer wealth, right? That Mike Bloomberg said that it was Congress intervening in this racist policy and ending it, that doing that caused the collapse in 2008. And so they should not have intervened. And so I sat and watched Congressman Meeks and other people yesterday, Diane, offer up excuses for why he was throwing black people up against the wall. They said, well, Mike is, he really wants to get guns off the street. And so we're all for getting guns off the street, right? And so, yeah, I'm all for getting guns off the street. But the question that I have is this. If I institute a policy to flog people, right, publicly flog them, is that justify the fact that I want to get guns off the street? And so for Meeks to do that, and again, let's understand very clearly what's happening. And I say this, and this is why I come at it the way that I do. Diane, I sat in these messaging rooms. I sat in these think tanks where there was a problem, right? The candidate had an imaging problem. So Mike Bloomberg right now has an image problem. And then you bring image experts in and they start throwing ideas against the wall, right? And then they bring in focus groups and they test those ideas to see how they're gonna play, to see, well, if we say this, what are they gonna say? What's their response gonna be? And so none of it is authentic. None of it is real. It is all made up just to try to advance a personal agenda. And the agenda for them is to get Mike Bloomberg elected so he can continue to do the business of corporate America. I mean, that is the fact. And so Stacey Abrams knows that. She's not a dumb woman. And so for her to cape for that, you see, for her not to say, Mike, you know what? I appreciate the fact that you apologize, but I want you to know that the timing is convenient. And what we have to do is, you know what? I know you want to run, but not this time. We have to slow down and we have to see that your words match your actions. But he's done nothing, right, other than say he apologized, but he's done nothing that reverses the 12 years worth of damage that was done. And so to simply say, yeah, you know what? Look, Diane, you own a bank. I rob banks for a living. Tomorrow I stop robbing banks and I say, you know, Diane, I need a job and I apologize for 15 years of robbing banks. What are you going to do? You may forgive me, but you're not going to put me in charge of your bank. You understand what I'm saying to you? So that is the logic. So forgiveness, yes, but you're certainly not going to give me the keys to your bank. And that's what I'm saying. So Stacey Abrams is giving him the keys to the black folks that she has and to her database. And so that's the other insidious thing, right? So in her registering, and you know this, see, that's why you're nodding your head, because you know this is all true. So all of the work that she did, right, to register people to vote, to get all of this information, all of that resides in her particular database. And now she's leveraging that. She's leveraging those people. And that is disgusting. And so when I say that Mike Bloomberg purchased a Negro woman for $5 million, that is exactly what he did.
So this is a lot to take in. You know, it's very hard for Black Americans to get to a point where they're frustrated and they cancel a person out. There has to be a lot that has to go before that, before they get to that place. I think with Stacey Abrams, there's a lot of questions that we have to ask her as to why is the reason that you're backing Bloomberg. What is it that you can publicly, because, you know, of course, there are private conversations, but that you can publicly say that there should be a reasoning for people to now sway their vote over to Bloomberg when initially people were saying Biden, but we all knew but Biden was not going to make it through. But what is it about Bloomberg, besides the fact that he knows how to trump the system, how to do what he wants by not following the rules of any particular party, but making himself so independent and being independent in every particular party that people should want to follow him, or we should cancel him out and say no, because of his transgressions and what he did with stop and frisk, there is no comeback from that. Or is there a comeback that he can make that would make people want to believe and entrust him with their lives moving forward as the president?
Diane, so look, this is what I'll say. Look, I don't know a man's heart, right? All I can do is judge you by your actions. So when you, and what did Maya Angelou say? When people show you, she didn't say when people tell you who they are. What did she say? When people show you who they are, believe them. Believe them. Believe them. And so Mike Bloomberg has shown his entire look. Here's a guy who was a Republican, a staunch Republican with all Republican values. When did he begin to adopt Democratic values? And now I want you to understand this. The same guy, Congressman Meek, says, hey, look, I'll take the Republican who has espoused Republican values almost his entire life over this guy who's an independent who has caucused with the Democrats 98% of the time.
But what are Republican values over Democratic values? Because all in honesty, they're all working for themselves together.
No. But understand, some of the Republican values, right, are overtly racist. Some of the Republican values are overtly racist. I was listening to something today, and once again, they were talking about, because I told you I've immersed myself in Fox News just so that I can understand, that perspective a little more. And they continue to talk about, America, making America great and, hearkening back to the good old days of when America was what for foundational Black Americans, Diane? Was never great for us, ever.
Right.
You see, and now I'm not saying that Democrats are any better because you don't see them standing. Well, now you do. You see them caping for Black folks, right? So I've never seen so many white politicians, trying to learn how to, do Black dances and how to eat fried chicken properly and how to pronounce chitlins and but they're caping for the Black vote now because that firewall, South Carolina, is their last hope. You know, and what they're holding on to, Diane, and we played the Willie Lynch letter, Making of a Slave, and what they're hoping is that what Willie Lynch's letter said holds true. He said, if you do these things, you will have them as slaves for over 300 years. And they're counting on it. They're counting on it. They're counting that when they get to South Carolina, that black folk, you saw the movie Get Out. Do you remember the scene where the woman, to hypnotize him, what she do? She just took the spoon and went around the edge of the cup, right? And so Pavlov's dog, you know, you snap, you do whatever, and you know, whatever that call is, you know, black folks are gonna just get in line. That's what they're hoping. They're hoping that Willie Lynch's letter and his prescription for making a slave, that holds true. Just one more again. And you know, and then they can reset things, because they believe that if they can do it now, then they can squash this revolt. You know, you see over in the Bronx, they have 11 people running against Alexandria Cortez. 11. And the reason they have 11 running, you know, again, Diane, because you are in politics, they have all these people running because they want to divide the vote up and try to get to a runoff. Right? So you have the Republican Party and the Democratic Party say, we got to get her out of here. We got to get her out of here. Go ahead.
So then, so where we're at right now, we have said that we have canceled out Kamala Harris because of her prosecution history. We've canceled out Cory Booker because being in New Jersey, and we know that he's done nothing for New Jersey, that he is what he is. We've canceled out Buttigieg because we've seen him as being the devil. We're halfway canceling out Elizabeth Warren because we can't figure out where she is, whether she's on the side of the banking industry or she's really for the people, although she does talk good talk and say, oh, I'm going to eliminate student loan debt, which is a big thing for a lot of people, especially our millennials who are still living at home with their parents and can't afford to move out. Biden, we canceled out because we knew that he was just the party supported person, because they figured that because he was underneath Obama, that we would automatically go towards him. Yang was not canceled out, but he was eliminated because of his views. Stryer, who is a multi-billionaire also, he was kind of, has he left the race yet?
No,
Still in the
you know
race?
what? So here's the thing about Tom Steyer. Is doing exceptionally well. I think he's in second place, or polling second among black folk in South Carolina, and he's doing it because he's spending he's always spent a ton of money. Even before the election, he was down there, spending a ton of money going around talking to these people. So Tom Steyer. Okay,
so we got to pay more attention to him then.
Well, listen.
To see what's going on.
Look, he's got a great message for black people. Now, look, here's the thing, and again, I got my ADOS hat on.
Right.
Got my ADOS shirt on. So, Diane, I am on code about the fact that we should be pushing for reparations. I'm on code.
Right,
there.
absolutely.
However, there are other things at stake as well. Let's take this call. Hello, caller, go.
Hey, good morning, guys. I just wanted to say, it's not about making America great again. It's about the South rising again, this mindset. So, both Democrat and a lot of Republicans, go along with that mindset. But the Stacey Abrams is, like a lot of black people, they think the grass is greener on the other side. The pastures of, the pastures on the other side are a lot greener, and they're taking this money. But as a community, we're not leveraging our money to get behind the candidate and making sure that, what we need for our community. Bloomberg is going to want a return on his investment. Even if he gets the nomination or he don't, he's going to put his name behind somebody else. And you're going to have to turn your eye away from criminality, just like people turn their eye away from stop and stitch for a long didn't say a damn thing about stop and frisk, and you couldn't even, they just trampled over people's rights as soon as you walked out the damn door, and politicians and these so-called activists and everybody else, looked the other damn way. So, but Bloomberg's going to change his tune because he want to be elected and say the magical word, puff the magic dragon. Oh, I'm sorry, and I come to see the light, and I was wrong now. But what about all the harm and that you did to people's lives? And what I mean? And a lot of people subscribe to this type of police. We have a lot of law and order. A lot of law and order candidates in the Democratic Party, more so than the damn Republican Party. They know they don't like you, but the Democrats going to smile in your face and put you in prison the same, And, we got to watch out for these law and order candidates. They make a criminal out of everybody, And, you get in there and circumstances come up and you're in jail for 20 years because you walked out your front door. But that's all I'm going to say. We got to stop thinking the grass is greener on the other side. These people are taking this money and it's causing harm to the community because when you take this money, they want a return on their investment. That's
Mike,
the bottom
but
line.
here's the issue that I have with this, right? Because literally, I could not believe, and I don't know if you saw the slave bill that I put up on my page, but it said something like, caution, Mike Bloomberg purchased Negro woman for $5 million.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I said that.
And so people said, "Oh, Eric, that's not funny," and it wasn't meant to be funny. It was meant to represent the times that we're living in. We want to believe, and I remember Kevin saying on the show once, he said he talked to a woman and he said, "You're a slave," and a woman said, "No, I'm not." Right, and so she didn't understand. And see, sometimes we're led to believe that we're free, right? But Mike Bloomberg right now is showing us that no, we're not. That a lot of us under this conditioning, right, the socializing that has taken place over decades, has us enslaved. And so, and so, then I put another bill up that I think it was from 1851, which explained how mayors were dispatching and aldermen were dispatching slave catchers to catch runaways, right? And so these were real things that happened. And so I'm saying to you, we don't live in a post-plantation or a post-slavery America. We are still the commodity to the wealth and power of the corporation of white supremacy. And so they have, through money now, through money and through laws, right? They have been able to continue.
Anything can be made legal. People don't understand that. But anything at any time can be made legal if you have a popular view on it. Anything. Cruelty, brutality, criminality, everything in America, if it's a garner a profit, it can be made legal. Slavery was legal. The cruelty of it all was legal. And that ain't changed. The only thing that's changed is that we've given other people to buy a chance to buy into this capitalistic model. And people will hear the word capitalism and lose their mind, but it's just the way of thinking. Anytime you hear the word ism, it's just a way of thinking. So, but you're just giving people the chance to buy into this cruelty of stop and frisk. These environmental policies. Oh, your water is poisoned. Oh yeah, because I'm invested in the stock market in the water. So hey, don't cause me to lose no money. Yeah, I don't give a damn how many people you poison. I just need those if you give people a chance to buy into this capitalistic thing, and without giving it a balanced approach, it's gonna go wrong. And this is where we are. People are throwing this money around. Unfathomable. Have you ever thought you'd see the day that they be throwing this money around? It's unfathomable that you can give somebody $5 million to an organization or a database.
Right, but you know what? Crazy. But Mike, but we say this on the show, and I firmly believe this. The corporation of white supremacy was caught off guard in 2020.
Oh yeah.
They were caught off guard, and now they have no other recourse but to take their hoods off and show their faces. And so when you see them throwing them, when you see them doing it, because they're looking, and what they're realizing is this. They're realizing that people were being unplugged over the last 5 years, or 4 or 5 years. They were being unplugged from this matrix, right? And then you saw midterm elections in 2018, and there was further evidence that people were being unplugged. And then I say that the corporation white supremacy at that point said, you know what? We need to ramp up our efforts. And that's when they started saying, you know what? We've got to make this issue about Trump. We got to demonize, right? Same deal. We have to dismiss, we have to demonize, we have to radicalize, we have to discredit, and we have to destroy Donald Trump. And in doing so, we're going to convince black folk in particular, because remember, the Democratic Party says it, not from my mouth. The Democratic Party says that 90% of black Americans vote Democrat, and they're looking forward to that, and they can't win without us. So now they have to have a very specific strategy in order to herd us to the polls. And that strategy is, don't look at what we want to prescribe for you. We want you to understand that your current condition is a result of this guy. And that's just not true. This guy did not cause your condition. And so that is the first. And so what I'm saying to you is this: lie once, lie always. So the Democratic Party is lying to you. Donald Trump did not cause your condition. Your condition was caused by a combination of the Democrat and the Republican Party working in their own self-interest and ignoring the people.
But let me put it in another term. They divested from your community a long time ago before Donald Trump got it on. He's a scoundrel. You know what I mean? He's what they call shoot. Anyway, but they have divested from your community a long time ago, and he, look at they can, deflect. Look over there. Look at that guy. He's the one who's causing all of your problems. But if in all reality, there's the fact that they divested from your community years ago.
And Mike, here's the other piece, right? So Democratic Party has divested from the black community, right? Republican Party, same. But you have these local Democrats who continue to write checks to support this party that has divested. So the party has no plan for the community, right? The party holds all the power. These elected officials who they have propped up in our local communities have no power, right? And they know, not only do they not have power, but they also know that the party that they heard black folks to go and vote for has divested from our community, which is why I'm saying that they're simply there to manage the poverty, because they know there's no plan.
Right.
And I'll go further. When the party decides it is no longer in their best interest to vote Democrat, they vote Republican.
Yeah.
What did they do in New Jersey? When they decided it was not in their best interest to vote for Barbara Buono, who was a Democrat.
Oh, man, that was...
They kicked Barbara Buono. I'm telling you, the entire Democratic Party kicked Barbara Buono. So the same party that tells you be loyal to them, be a Democrat first, right? That same party, these same people, most of them, probably 80% of them are still in office as Democrats. Those same people kicked Barbara Buono to the bus, to the curb, and they supported Chris Christie. See, I want you to understand. So now, but for you to be a free thinker, for you to think about what's in your best interest, for you to seize economic and political power, see, something's wrong with you. Because see, you're not a team player. You see, you have to be a Democrat. Well, were they a Democrat when they voted for Chris Christie? Were they a Democrat when they kicked Barbara Buono to the curb?
But that was the true definition of hurting. That was that like you said earlier about hurting people, and we're not so far removed that we can't be hurting. And it's a dangerous thing, hurting, because they count on you to be grazing with your head down, not knowing what the hell is going on until they push push you in a direction. This is what they heard it. You know what I mean? But when they heard it, people are out of the Democratic Party to vote for Republican Chris Christie. They exposed themselves. The party exposed themselves, and the herd fell in line. Just like, but the few people who got their head up looking around don't want to get caught up in the herd trampled. It's like, oh no, don't go that direction. It's a big disaster waiting for you there. And they didn't listen. They ignored the people just like they're going to ignore you now.
Right.
Because they got their head down and they're being pushed in a direction that's, it's going to have some drastic results.
Yeah.
But I would give up the phone. Good to talk to you this morning.
Hey, you too, brother. Thank you for the insight.
So
and Diane.
Give you some feedback on what's going on in the feed.
Go ahead.
So on Facebook, they're saying Bloomberg is more intelligent than Trump. However, black folks need to get some of the billions he is giving out. We'll deal with how they manage their connection after they cash in. Another person, there are no perfect candidates. I won't mind any of them other than Buttigieg, Bloomberg, or Biden. But if we're stuck with one of those choices in November, I'll be pulling that lever again against Trump. Let's see. I'm not voting for Bloomberg in the primary, but we may as well wrap our minds around the fact that the media is pushing him the same way they push Trump. I'm voting blue no matter who in November.
So my question is, can I interrupt this for 1 second?
Yep,
why not vote black? Why are you voting blue? See, here's my. So my question is, are you on a Democrat team before you're on a black team? Are you on a Democrat team before you recognize yourself as an American descendant of slavery? Are you on a Democrat team before you recognize that you are a foundational black American that has been negatively impacted for 400 years by racist policy? Are you a Democrat first? See, because that's what so when I see those things, it says vote blue. I'm voting blue no matter who. I'm saying no. So you're not putting yourself first. You're not putting yourself first.
So when I went down the line of all the different candidates that we started to cancel out or dismiss, I never touched, I guess, Amy Kovich and some other people. But anyway, another question in the feed says, so we know none of these candidates speak to or for the black community. So what do? Do we keep belaboring the same point about each candidate? Or do we do something different? Because it all begins and sounds like a bunch of noise at some point.
Right. So what I'm going to do, and this isn't me, but I'm going to play this again. And I want you to listen to it. Right? Because we revere Malcolm. We revere Martin. They left us breadcrumbs and a trail to follow. Right? Martin said, and he was murdered for saying this. He said that we need to shift the balance of power, that there will be no change without economic and political power, and that's what we need to be fighting for. That's what he said, right? And Malcolm spent his second half of his life, right, certainly after his Hajj, in trying to liberate black people. And I'm going to play it again from him, and then we can have the discussion about what we should do.
There's only one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine.
So, I'm for anybody who's for freedom.
What
for
candidates
anybody
are
who's
for
for
the equality
justice.
that we're looking for.
I'm for anybody who's for equality. So the question that I'm going to ask you is this, right? So maybe you don't find any of them in there, and then you look to vote down ballot, right? So maybe you don't find any of them there, and you look and you vote down ballot. But what I'm saying is
So
this:
what
we
the
can
thing is, when you're
determine.
voting down ballot, you're saying, I'm not going to vote for the president, but I'm voting for all the other candidates that are running in other offices.
I'm voting. I'm
So
saying that we should heed the words of El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, and we should be in support of anybody who's fighting for freedom. We should be in support of anybody who's fighting for justice. We should be against anybody who's not fighting for freedom and equality and justice, all the way down the ticket, all the way down the ticket. And so,
what you're saying, if the person that should be that should be working for equality for us as Black Americans, if we don't find that candidate in a presidential candidate, then we should be not voting for a presidential candidate, and we should be voting for other candidates that fit our criteria on the other levels. Is that what you're saying?
that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. We should have our our only issues, because nothing will transformatively change for us until we seize economic and political power. Nothing. All of the things that are bulleted on campaign material, none of that will come to fruition unless we have economic and political power. And so we should be fighting with and for anybody who is fighting for freedom, fighting for justice, fighting for equality. And we should be fighting against those people who are fighting against our interests. And so now,
So
if we go...
So what candidates do you see right now are most aligned with fighting for Black Americans?
Let me take I don't know if this is a telemarketer, but I'm gonna take a call and see. Hello?
We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's extended warranty. You should have received something in the mail.
Okay, it was about my car's extended warranty. I'm sorry. Anyway, ask your question again, Diane.
So which candidate what candidate best fit the criteria and the issues for the Black American?
So look.
Because I don't see any.
So look, we're not monolithic, and I get that.
Right.
Right. So what candidate fits the criteria for Black America? Right. So that's Mike Bloomberg, who says he's got a plan for Black America or whatever it is. All I can do is tell you my methodology. And my methodology, and this is again because it's all about symbolism, it's all about iconography, it's all about a recognition and identifying who and what you are, which is why I'm dressed in my hat and my sweatshirt, because I want to be clear about who I am. I don't want there to be any ambiguity about what it is that I fight for. The ultimate is that foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slavery. I'm not sure where Diane went.
My laptop just died, and
okay.
I don't have the right charge here.
Oh, okay.
All
right. So I still have Diane on the phone. So what I'm gonna try to do is, so that you guys are not distracted, I'm gonna move to a single screen now. So I understand that the end game, as we move these pieces across the chessboard, is for foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slavery, to receive reparations. That is the only thing that is going to resolve the issues that we've been plagued with since our ancestors were brought here and enslaved 400 years ago. Got that?
Okay.
Right? So every move we make, or every move I make, I'm going to talk about me. Every move I make is to that end. So it's the same thing with a chessboard, right? I'm moving pieces on a chessboard, but my ultimate goal is not to capture your rook or to sacrifice my knight. The ultimate goal is for me to checkmate you. That is the goal. So as the pieces are moving down the board, I'm developing, I'm advancing, I'm strategizing with the ultimate goal of checkmating. Checkmate for foundational Black American descendant of slavery is the receiving of reparations. So
in all honesty, I think that if more people paid attention to the congressional races, that whoever the president would be would not be as important, because you would be able to stop stuff that the president would want to do, because you'd have more control, as they did.
So that's exactly what I'm saying, Diane. That's exactly what I'm getting to. And so no matter whether a presidential candidate tells you that they're for or against reparations, there's nothing that they're going to be able to do unless there's political power, right? Political power in the House of Representatives and political power in the Senate. If you don't have the votes, you're not going to get it. I don't care what that president says. So if we just want to be emotional about it, and we just want to have somebody tell us, yeah, I'll give you reparations, and then if that's going to be enough to get us to go and vote, well, he said it or she said it, then you're fooling yourself, because nothing will happen until you deal with these other races. So take New Jersey. You got Mickey Sherrill up in Upper Montclair. Then in the lower half of Montclair, in the 10th Congressional District, where I'm running to be congressman, you have Donald M. Payne Jr. Where does he stand on it? Is he out there fighting for it? Then let's go all the way through New Jersey and look at all of the Congress men and women. Look at the 2 U.S. senators. Where did they fall on reparations? Let's look at the state senators. Where do they fall on reparations?
So basically, our Congress and our Senate are the ones who actually run the United States, not necessarily the president. The president is more figurehead, but he can only move if those 2 houses allow him to move. Well, and that is where we should be paying attention to.
Well, sure, Diane, if you have...
That's what the Republicans did when Obama ran. They ran their seats, those Congress and Senate seats. They could make sure that they were controlling everything that would or would not happen.
Absolutely. And so as long as if you can create a level of independence within the House of Representatives, and I mean independence from the executive branch, right? So you're supposed to have these 3 branches of government, right? The executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. If there is no real separation in between those 3 branches of government, then you really have no power. If on the local level, because all of these Congress seats are run at local levels, right? They're run at local levels. There are people in Newark and Irvington and East Orange and Montclair who are going to decide who the Congress people are that are going to go and vote in Washington. And so so what we do is we abdicate our responsibility to make sure that those people are on code and are for reparations. So my question is this: before folks voted for Mickey Sherrill, did they find out if she was for reparations? Before they voted for Donald M. Payne the last election, did they find out if he was for reparations? You see, but people want to say, well, you know what? I'm going to hold my vote. I'm not going to vote because nobody told me that they're for reparations in the presidential race. I mean, I'm saying that's crap.
That's because they don't understand civics and how it's broken down. That's why I just asked you. We should now really be concentrating on the Senate and the Congress seats. So those are the seats that are going to get us the reparations and what we want. It's not going to be the president. It's going to be them.
That's absolutely right. And so now, if we can all agree on that, so even if we can't agree on who we're going to vote for president, can we at least agree, guys, that we need to be supporting people who have the black agenda? And I'm going to say the black agenda should be the seizure of economic and political power. That's it. That should be it.
And the political power comes in the Congress and the Senate. So that's what we have to say. You have to say, because the words that we use, people don't understand the concept of what we're saying. And you really got to break it down and say, these are the seats that control what we want. Right. And not the president.
Well, right. But it's more nuanced than that. And I know you got to go in a second or two, right? So but I want to say this before you do. But it's more nuanced than that, because once we realize, okay, fine, we're going to vote down ballot, right? Meaning the congressional seats, anything. So when you get your ballot and you see the top of the ticket is the president, and then everybody else on the national and state and local level is there, right? Your U.S. senator, so Cory Booker will be on the ballot, and all these people, and they'll all be lined up with whoever the Democrat nominee is on that final ballot. Understand that top of the ticket person is also funding these other people. And so you can't ignore them completely because they are working against your interest. So though you're focusing and saying, I'm going to vote down ballot, you got to chop the head off of the snake. Right? And so I'm saying the head to me, for me, is anybody who is contributing to this diseased system, whether Republican or Democrat. Anybody who's writing a check, anybody who's caping or otherwise supporting any person who is a part of this failed system, they're working against your interest. So they all got to go. So we're back to that. They all have to go. And Diane, I know you have to go too.
Yeah, time for us to start our sightseeing and hit the museums and stuff and drink some more sangria.
Were you drinking sangria before you got on air, Diane?
Yes, absolutely. It's lunch.
Hey, Diane, I gotta say,
for
people who just tuned in, you can't see Diane. That was a fabulous color on you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it works with your red undertones.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Now, if you see me all the rest of the month of February wearing this color, you'll know why.
Well, listen, I wanna thank you for interrupting your vacation and calling in. It shows your level of dedication and commitment to the cause, and I want you guys to have a safe time there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll try and tune in with you tomorrow. I'll give you a heads up, let you know if I can dial in tomorrow. Okay?
All right. Hey, guys, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Thanks, D.
Do you have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black Belt Security and Investigations has armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on, visit www.bbsillc.com or call 1-800-493-1859 today.
It's time to turn up the heat in your house or apartment. So here are some fire safety tips from Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency to keep you warm and safe this winter. Don't overload your electrical outlets. Keep flammable items away from fireplaces and space heaters. And put a fresh battery in your smoke detector. Turn to Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency for your home and renter's insurance or bundle it with your auto insurance and save. Call 908-686-4609 or visit dlminsurance.com today.
BBSI. BBSILLC.com.
There's only one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine. I'm for anybody who...
So, I got an opportunity to look at some of the things that are in the feed, and it's difficult for me. Actually, I could probably do it now and just mute my phone. But I did see a comment. I don't know who it was from, but it said, we can't continue to belabor the point. And what I'm going to say is this: slaves for the amount of time, or enslaved Africans and descendants of those freed Africans who were enslaved, they spent every single day plotting and planning, trying to get off of the plantation, wanting to be free. So the notion that, and I think that when you say we can't belabor sitting and talking about how to be liberated, we can't belabor the point of talking about how to inform, engage, and empower those who are misguided and those who have been socially engineered in a way that works against their interests. To say that we shouldn't belabor that, I don't understand that comment. As long as I look, because this, if we look and we say that Dr. King, for the better part of his adult life, talked about this, and here we are in 2020 still talking about it because it has not been resolved. So should he have stopped talking about it? Because he talked about it every day. Malcolm talked about it every day. Marcus Garvey talked about it every day. They all talked about it every single day. They gathered together and they tried to work through these complex issues every day to figure out, maybe if I change my messaging a little bit, maybe like Diane said, Eric, unpack a little bit more so that people might be able to understand, explain to them again what it means to vote down ballot. Maybe people don't get it. You know, and you just continue to go at it. But to say that we shouldn't belabor it, then what should we do? What should the conversation be? If you understand that there's going to be zero wealth in the Black community by 2053, if you understand that the current situation in our educational institutions, especially in poor Black communities, renders our children helpless in terms of being able to compete. Not just on a national scale, on a global scale, it's ridiculous. No competition at all. But nationally, not able to compete. You know, and I was listening to something today because it is President's Day, right? And they were saying, you know, the Constitution says that we have that we have a right, to pursue happiness, not to be happy. Right? I heard this on Fox News today. They said to pursue happiness. We have a right, right? It is our right as American citizens to pursue happiness. And I think about you know, the speech again. Do you seek to mock me because you're telling me that I have a right to pursue happiness? Meanwhile, you shackle my ankles to an anvil. You shackle my ankles to an anvil, and then you say, hey, Eric, you have a right to pursue happiness. But every policy, every law runs contrary to my ability to be able to do just that. And we shouldn't talk about it. We should talk about it every day. Every single day. It should be about deprogramming. Deprogramming. Get back in and deprogram. When I go into my feed and I see people defending a guy who for 12 years brutalized Black people, and when I see Black elected officials defending a guy who brutalized Black people, who championed redlining, and you see elected officials, you see so-called prominent people within our community defending them. Look, I will tell you this. Look at what the Jewish community did in Jersey City when they believe Joan Terrell Page says something anti-Semitic. Look at what the Jewish community did. They poured into the street. They pressured local elected officials and said, fire her. She needs to resign. She's anti-Semitic. She's the face of hate. Now, they were wrong about that, but they activated. And I'm saying to you, here's a guy who was the face of hate to Black people, traumatized them. Some of them have scars that are not visible on the outside. But oh my gosh, I've read story after story that shows up in my feed from people who are talking about their experience of being stopped and frisked. And we shouldn't talk about it. We shouldn't belabor the point. What else is there to talk about? So when we are willing to marginalize ourselves in the midst of the brutality that we suffer, why are we so surprised that others marginalize us too? When other groups feel marginalized, feel abused, feel taken advantage of, they come and they speak out. They rally, they protest, they get together, and they effectuate change through political power. But for us, we get bored with it. And let's move on. Let's not talk about that anymore. But it's still happening. I got a text, I got an inbox today. I got an inbox today, and it says, college swim team takes bathroom break on the way back from a road trip. Local deputies spot the team's only black member. They tackle him, put a gun to his head, threatened to kill him, and then they later claimed they mistakenly thought he had taken the bus hostage. Right? So whether it's how they see us, meaning the presidential candidate Michael Bloomberg in New York, or this particular young man who was traumatized because he had a gun put to his head and they threatened to kill him because they mistakenly thought that he had taken a bus hostage because he was the only black person on the swim team. But we shouldn't belabor it. And so when we don't demand, right, accountability from the guy who's running for the highest office in the land, and how can we go here and ask them to be held accountable? How do we do that? So those are the mixed signals, right? So we give this guy a pass. We give him a pass. But when we go and we look here, we say, well, but no, we should have outrage here. Listen, we've held book club, and the books that we've read have profoundly changed my life, my perspective on things. The condition, and we have to start there. And I think that some of us are so arrogant as to believe that we're not affected by this post-slavery syndrome, that we're not impacted and affected by the micro and macroaggressions and the miseducation in these public schools, that we're not affected by and impacted by our surroundings, that the brutality that we see occurring, including reading the article that I just read to you about that young man who had a gun put to his head and he was threatened, that we just believe that those things happen to us, or we read about them and they don't have a profound impact on who we are, and that we need therapy. It's convenient to want to just move on. But I'll tell you, looking at what I'm looking at now, that people are not just absolutely disgusted, says to me that we are in deep denial. There's a deep psychosis. There is a sickness deeper and more widespread than I even imagined. Because it's all in the open now, and they're laughing. And at the end of this election, if there is no significant pushback by foundational black Americans, by American descendants of slavery, if there is no significant pushback, they will, for the next 200 years, know how to treat us because of how we treated ourselves. So, in these down ballot races, whether it's a council race, whether it's a mayor's race, whether it's a state assembly race, whether it's a freeholder race, U.S. senator, race, governor race, if those people are not specifically talking about a strategy that allows for the seizure of power, both economic and political, for the 99%, and then in particular, that 13% that represents foundational Black Americans. And I look at the 99% because, again, I am following the lead of Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was rallying for a poor people's campaign. And that is the poor people's campaign. He didn't say a poor Black people's campaign. He said a poor people's campaign. And I'm not going to discredit that. There needs to be a poor people's campaign, but it is the seizure of economic and political power. And then outside of that, and I could do both things. So I could go and fight for the larger poor people's mission, which includes us. But then as I'm fighting, be specific to make sure that we're carving out what we deserve, which are reparations. And that only will happen when you can have the votes in the House of Representatives and you have the votes in the Senate. And so the work has to be done. So if you're mayor, if you're councilman, if they're supporting a congressperson who is not for reparations, then that means that that council person or that mayor isn't for reparations. If you're supporting a councilman and a mayor or any other local elected official who is supporting a person who is not for fighting for political and economic empowerment, then you're voting against your best interest. Now, you ask why we belabor it? Because when the elections occur and we go back, because I think, 3 weeks to, no, not 3 weeks, so a couple weeks to South Carolina, and we go back and look at the exit polling, it'll be clear why we have to continue to have the conversation. Because as we move from state to state in these primaries, and as we get closer and closer to Super Tuesday, we have to be beating this drum. There is no mistake as to why Mike Bloomberg is pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into campaign ads. It is to condition you. And so, to the degree that we can leverage this platform to be able to reverse that conditioning, we try to do. What is the virus? I forgot the name of it, and I'm not in the feed right now. But they were talking about the coronavirus. So it says 14 cruise ship passengers with coronavirus among those evacuated to the U.S. So this coronavirus, and I know that there are people who have these conspiracy theories about vaccinations and the emergence of the coronavirus. The safest thing that you guys can continue to do is to make sure you're washing your hands, and you're washing your hands, and you're washing your hands, and you're keeping your hands, I guess, to the degree that you can, away from your face and your mouth and your eyes. I guess your orifices, right? Any opening in your in your body. So your eyes, your nose, your mouth is how disease can permeate. So I would encourage you guys to do that, but also to go get checked out if you have any of the symptoms. right? Don't be afraid to run to the doctor if you have any of the symptoms. Don't think that you're being a hypochondriac if you have any of the symptoms. What is the you know what? I mean, I got all this stuff that people are sending me to talk about, and like I literally to talk about anything else makes no good sense. To talk about anything outside of these things makes no good sense. Literally, right now, guys, every single thing is about how to manipulate the voter for these upcoming elections. Every single thing. So I don't know. I'm not sure what it is that you guys want me to talk about outside of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another break. And I'm going to go in a thread. And if there's something that that rises to the level of importance that equals this, then I'll talk about it. If it doesn't, then I think that I would be remiss to not continue to talk about what's going on in Washington, what's going on locally, with politics. We'll be right back.
Do you have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black Belt Security and Investigations has armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on, visit www.bbsillc.com or call 1-800-493-1859 today.
It's time to turn up the heat in your house or apartment. So here are some fire safety tips from Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency to keep you warm and safe this winter. Don't overload your electrical outlets. Keep flammable items away from fireplaces and space heaters. And put a fresh battery in your smoke detector. Turn to Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency for your home and renter's insurance or bundle it with your auto insurance and save. Call 908-686-4609 or visit dlminsurance.com today.
BBSI. BBSILLC.com.
There's only one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine.
So I did get an opportunity to look in the thread, and I'm going to respond to two of the things. One, Munira, you say Eric Dawson produce an action plan. The action plan is simple. I don't need to produce it. Show up at council meetings. Show up at board meetings. Show up. That's it. That is the action plan. Let's do that. See, the idea of chasing this tail of creating an action plan, knowing that the key performance indicators that suggest that we don't get involved in anything, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I could go and create the most elaborate action plan in the world. But I understand that as we stand right now, the Willie Lynch letters are in full effect. And so the biggest action plan that I can have is to continue to show up here every day from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, right? And try to provide information and hopefully bring together a group of people who are having a conversation and they'll take some action, right? But you asked me to create an action plan for how people are docile enough to line up for water when they have a water crisis instead of holding accountable the elected officials. There's no action plan for that other than to say to you, right, hey, you need to go down your street, your block. Not Eric go down your street and your block, but you need to go down your street and your block, and you need to have conversations with those people. That's an action plan. Go do that. Right? And then more people need to go and do that. That's an action plan. Doesn't need to be some elaborate thing. I've written action plans on napkins and paper towels. Do this, do this, do this. Now go do it. But if those things are not being done, to sit is just maximum sophisticated confusion to say, well, you know what, I'm going to sit down, we're going to meet for 15 hours, we're going to devise this plan, and then nobody shows up, nobody does anything. So show up at the meetings, right? There are board meetings that are, there's a Board of Education election that's going to be coming up in, about 8 weeks in the city of Newark and in Irvington. And I've already suggested several times that the board is incompetent. Involve yourself. If you've not volunteered or are not lining up to volunteer or to financially support candidates in the Board of Education election, well, it is an action plan. Do that. Sign up. Another action plan. Sign up to be a canvasser, to be a phone banker, or to be a fundraiser for a political campaign of a person running in the local election leading up to the primary. Right? There's an action plan. Now, Just Shady Lathan, we all know the problem, so what's the solution? The solution is to get involved. The solution is to get engaged. And I don't think that everybody knows what the problem is. I think there are a lot of people who really don't understand what the problem is. So if you know what the problem is, then share that information. There's a solution, right? Because there's strength in numbers. So if you know, don't assume that everybody else knows. Right? So the solution is to continue to inform, engage, and empower. I can go and walk down certain blocks here in Bloomfield, or in East Orange, or in Orange, or in Newark, in Irvington. And I can ask those folks, who's your congressperson? Who's your state senator? Who's your U.S. senator? And they wouldn't know. So to make the comment that says, we all know the problem. No, we don't. Because the problem is some of those elected officials. And so what we can do, right, is we can be ambassadors of information. There's a solution. There's an action plan. Here's another one, right? If you go down in your phone contacts and make it your business, if you believe what I just said, which is that the majority of people don't know who their elected officials are or what policies they support. So now we can be ambassadors of information. We can go through our phone directory and we can send that key information out to 10, 15 people every day. There's an action plan. There's a solution. Right? It says join a movement. Yeah, you could do that. But I would say, and joining movements are fantastic. The question always again is, to what end? What is the objective of the movement? If the movement is not focused on ultimately seizing economic and political power, then I question the movement. And if the movement is about seizing economic and political power, what are the proposed steps? What are the proposed steps? And again, I believe it has to start with education, right? That movement has to begin with educating an electorate, right? And then based on that education, making moves against the establishment that has subjugated you. But if the movement's not doing that, all of it, I believe, is subterfuge. Poor People's Army, yes. Yeah, but and the Poor People's Army to do what? The Poor People's Army. Look, we did, and Munira, I think you did an amazing job, and some of the other people who did it a couple years ago now, right? We did Walk the Walk, and we walked in the community, and we talked to residents in the community about some of their issues. Top line issue being term limits, right? There was very little, if any, follow through with that data that exists somewhere, right? But the organization of 10 weeks of people going out knocking on doors and collecting data, that happened. And that data exists somewhere. And solution, take that data wherever it exists, contact those people, see if they are voting based on the things that they listed as top priorities. That data's out there. Stop feeding the machine. Support indie media and grassroots organizations, not nonprofits. There's a solution. I agree 100% with that, because all nonprofits do a cape for the establishment. They get their money. All of their money comes from corporate donors. And then they're beholden to these corporate donors, so they can't say anything. This is why the NAACP doesn't say anything. This is why the Urban League doesn't say anything. This is why now Stacey Abrams and her organization that just got $5 million from Bloomberg isn't going to say anything about stop and frisk. Right? So contribute to organizations. But again, I'm going to go back and it's circular. Contribute to organizations that are openly saying that they are fighting to seize economic and political power. Anything else that they're fighting for is not going to produce any transformative results. It's got to be economic and political power. And for foundational Black Americans, see, because economic and political power is part of the Poor People's March, Poor People's Campaign, what Martin Luther King fought and ultimately was murdered for. But outside of the Poor People's Army, right, within that army, us fighting next to whites and Hispanics and other folks who are part of that Poor People's Army are foundational Black Americans or American descendants of slavery who say, you know what, we're fighting this Poor People's March because, we're poor too, but we've got a specific claim, and so we're moving in another direction at some point because we have to continue to push this issue toward reparations. So those are the organizations that we need to be funding, right? And those are the organizations that we need to be giving our time to. Well, so the idea, and I'm reading you, just Shady Lathan, you say I'm speaking to the choir, right? And that we're all pretty informed. There are people who call me, who say to me, I don't know, I didn't know that. And so if I can pick up one new person, I go and I look at our YouTube channel and I see I get 1 or 2 new subscribers, and I get an inbox and the person says, hey, thank you for covering that information. So it might have been something that I covered 2 months ago, 3 months ago, but this person who tuned in, right? They got that information. And so it's another person now, hopefully, who's carrying the mantle toward the freedom and toward liberation. So that's why I continue to repeat it. So if it sounds like old hat, it's kind of like going into a classroom, right? For the entire year, you're learning, if they're trying to teach you arithmetic, they're going over and over and over it again. And we want to see. So when we have, so here's what I'll say to you, Just Shady. After the lesson is given in class, there's a quiz, then there's an exam. So the quiz is the primaries, the exam is the general. So when we look and see that after, and so, 4 years now I've been doing this, and 4 years we've had a failed local government. For 4 years we've had, in the midst of these 4 years, we've had a myriad of crises that have impacted our local communities. And for the choir, right, I look and say, we still haven't gotten enough people to enlist and engage with us. For the choir, we still weren't able to get, and it's not pointing fingers, it's just saying that there's more work that needs to be done, right? All of us. So we weren't able to get enough signatures on Donna Jackson's petition to get her on the ballot for councilperson. We weren't able to accomplish some things, so we need to continue the work. We need to continue the outreach. Say maybe I'm different. I look to learn from everyone, but when the information becomes redundant, I stop learning. Yeah. I look for results, and right now we have not gotten any results. And I guess that's the thing that that befuddles me, the fact that there are no results, right? There is, there's a tuning in of the station. There is a listening of the information. But then when we, I guess I look and I say, when we proof up in the end, there are no results, or the results are bleak. I'm looking, and I'll say this too, Just Shady, I look at other communities where there are results, and I ask the question, right? So mine isn't to have all of the answers. It is simply to create the platform to have a conversation about it and say, look, we haven't figured this out yet. Hey, guess what? We still haven't figured this out yet. Hey, guess what? We still haven't figured this out yet, and we still haven't figured it out yet. So. Yeah. And the last thing that so here, well, this is more Bloomberg stuff that just it keeps coming through my feed. But this is all it's going to be. It's just going to continue to be this. Hey, listen, some lighter stuff. I think that Jennifer Hudson did a great job in her tribute during the All-Star game to Kobe Bryant. I don't know whether they've reached a final conclusion with regard to how to deal with Gayle King, or whether that thing has just kind of taken its course and they've moved on from it. But I did appreciate what Jennifer Hudson did. I thought that it was absolutely beautiful. You know who has flown under the radar with regard to all of this stuff, and we'll see how it plays out, is Amy Klobuchar. I don't know if you guys know that as a prosecutor, one of the things that she was instrumental in is prosecuting case in particular of a black male and withholding evidence. And now she's being asked to answer these things. But again, all of these folks are part of a system. They grew up in this system, whether it's through white privilege, or just having a sense of how to marginalize and see us as less than, and so they just didn't care. And so all of these things now are playing themselves, whether it's on the Republican side with Donald Trump or with Amy Klobuchar now, and how she, and how she prosecuted cases against black folks. What else? I think that's pretty much. Oh, so and I'm going to be speaking to her today. Councilwoman Baskerville out of Montclair. I put a post up last week because I saw that she's running for mayor in Montclair. And I put a post up questioning, right, which I have a right to do, her affiliation with the Democratic Party and her affiliation with some of the people who were in the picture that she decided to post on her page. And in that picture was, amongst other people, Dwayne Warren, the current mayor of the city or township of Orange, who has all this legal stuff swirling around him. The councilwoman, mayoral candidate, reached out to me, and so I'm going to have a conversation with her. And my hope is to be able to glean whether or not, so to your point early in the feed, guys, to see whether or not she gets it, to see whether or not she's part of the choir. But these are the kinds of things. So solution, again, that if we count ourselves as part of the choir or the informed class, that all of these people who are starting to announce, including the 17, or maybe I think there may be 22 people now in Orange who have listed themselves as candidates for various offices in upcoming elections there, that we drag these people in front of platforms like this. Doesn't have to be this one, but a platform where we can all dial in and tune in and hear what it is they have to say, and not allow them to be sequestered and just show up and on a ballot somewhere. So, that's what I try to do. I tried to reach out to her, was successful in doing that. My hope is to have her on this platform to talk about it, because she, where she lives, is responsible for either supporting or not supporting Donald M. Payne, who's the current congressman in 10th District, which is where her ward is in Montclair. And I want to know where she stands on that. I want to know where she stands on fighting for political and economic power, and where she stands on supporting the Democratic Party. So we'll get that information sooner than later, my hope is. I think that I've covered all of it. The last thing that I want to say, and then I'm out, is I posted a flyer, and I'll ask you guys to share it. And some folks have asked me about my candidacy for U.S. Congress in the 10th Congressional District. An opportunity for me to have, I try to take the opportunity on Sunday to really just take that entire hour and talk about that whole stuff. But there's going to be a meet and greet on the 14th at the DLV Lounge, which is 300 Bloomfield Avenue in Montclair. It's going to be from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And it is going to be an opportunity for me to address a lot of the questions that folks have had up close and personal. So solution, there's my solution, right? That I see a problem and I'm trying to engage and resolve it. And that is that we have failed leadership in the 10th Congressional District. So I would ask you, action plan, Munira, I would ask you to share the flyer. Even if you don't intend to come, even if you don't intend to support me, just share it so that other people know that there is an alternative. I would ask you to do that as an action plan. So try to create a solution and try to give you another action plan. I want to I'm gonna play, and it's just one more commercial that I continue to play because I think that it sums it up, and which is why I can't get away, and I got to figure something out, but I can't get away from the pressing issues of today as I watch the news and we're inundated with it all. I can't, take the blue pill and run to a sitcom or something like that. This thing is far too important. But I'm gonna play what Killer Mike had to say again, and with this we're gonna be out. So thank you guys for tuning in.
I just want to say one of my favorite writers growing up was a man named James Baldwin. And I remember Baldwin saying, you ask my father to wait, my brother to wait, my uncle to wait, how long must I wait on freedom? How long must I wait on rights and equality and liberty? And as a black child, that resonated with me because I knew I'd been denied, and I personalized that. But as I grew, I started to understand poor white people have been denied. Women have been denied. Gays and lesbians, transgender people been denied. Immigrant children been denied. Everybody outside of that 1% has been denied. So I want you to take a few seconds to look to your left and look to your right. Look to your neighbor and say, neighbor, the time is now. There are more of us. We're stronger. We will wait no longer. The time is now. When you go to that booth next year, I need you to carry in that booth the memory of this room. Black, white, straight, gay, men, female. We are together. We are united. Our time is right now. We will not wait 4 more years. We will not wait 20 more years. We will not wait 2 more presidents. We will not wait 3 more presidents. The time is now. The time is not in the future. The time is not some abstract time. The time is not something that might be. The time ain't something that could be. The time ain't nothing that should be, that would be. It ain't tomorrow. It ain't the day after. It ain't coming next week. The time is. Senator Bernard Sanders will be the next president of the United States of America. Thank you all.